And welcome to Impact 2024, our continuing conversation where we talk about all different types of things, current events, where we talk about race, religion, every single topic that you can think of. We have the ability to talk about. And that's what we do. We gather here so that we can talk about all the different issues of the day. Well, what you feel is important on your mind, it's important on my mind. You can participate in this by typing in your questions and your comments into the comment section. So feel free to be an active participant. Type in what you want to say. Type in what you think. Type in if you think there's a question. Type that in as well. But please feel free to be an active participant in your comment section. We will see it. We will pull it up. We will talk about it. Before we get started, as we've been doing lately, Amani Christian Ministries. That's what we are. This is offered through the ministry, and we have some other offerings. We have Bible study on Thursdays at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So please join us for that Thursday Bible study. We have worship service on Sundays at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I always say that because we have international reach. And so people need to know when it is. I can't just say 10. So we have service at 10 o'clock. Please join us for that on Sundays, every Sunday. And on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock, we have prayer. From 7 to 7:45, please pray with us. If you have a prayer concern, you can call and use the number and drop it in there. And then, of course, Impact, where you are right now. So please don't just join us for this. Join us for the other offerings we have as well. Please feel free to participate in those and grow in your faith. All right. What we're doing today is we're going to have a quick conversation about what's going on in the world. And what's going on in the world, as you know, is the political campaigns. And this one, we're talking about RFK, Robert Kennedy Jr. He was running for president. He was running as an independent, and he dropped out of the race so that he can now support Donald Trump. Now, why is this important? Why we're talking about it? This is not a political show. This is not a political program. It's not a political talk, whatever you want to call it. We're talking about it because he has a wife who is famous, and she is an actress, and her name is Cheryl Hines. And so you have Cheryl Hines, you have RFK Jr. Cheryl Hines has repeatedly said in different situations that she does not subscribe to all of the things that her husband talks about. She is not a participant when it comes to the Donald Trump MAGA train that her husband is now signed up to be on board with. She has tried to draw a little bit of a line in between her and her husband. Now, she may be doing that because she's an actress and she knows, a lot of people not playing that. You go out here, you say some mean things and some hateful things, you can forget about being big time in Hollywood. Or she may be saying it because she truly believes it and her husband and her just have an impasse. Either way, she's been saying these things. And she's been coming under a lot of criticism from a lot of other people who are saying, you are tethered to your husband. If he's out here talking this hateful stuff, you're culpable as well. You should be speaking out against it. You should be going against what he's saying. And she's done that one time before. Her husband, and I'm not going to go through all of the things that he said, but one of the ones that's most notable is that he's been talking about when he crosses the line and talks about sometimes making some references to different religious groups, talking about Jewish people, and she's come out and she said, I don't agree with the comments that he has made. All right. There it goes. It's put out there. If you know anything about RFK Jr., he's very eccentric. He said he has worms in his head. He took a bear cub that he hit with a car and he dumped it off in the middle of Central Park. So he's done some crazy stuff. He has a very unique voice because he has some kind of condition going on. So if you know about him, he's very eccentric. And so there's a lot of people who sit back and look at him and like, hey, man, this dude is crazy. He's saying crazy things all the time. How can you have a responsibility as a spouse to be with him? And that's the question. That's the question for us when it comes down to our family and our friends. whether it be not just whether it be a spouse, whether it be your kids, or whether it be your parents. Where is the line of where you feel the responsibility that you have to speak out against what they're saying if you feel like what they're saying is wrong? Where's the responsibility that you have? And so there's a lot of situations where people have to sit back, especially if you have somebody who's out there. They're either a political person. They may be somebody who has some other kind of leadership role, or they're on television a lot, or they're on media a lot. And people say things, and they say crazy things. And as spouses, as family members, what is our responsibility to speak out against it? When things are hurtful, when things are mean, when things are fundamentally different from what we may believe. Where is that line? Is it fair when people are criticizing? So for Cheryl Haynes, is it fair that people are criticizing her because of the comments that her husband makes? Is it fair for people to sit back and say, well, if he's saying hateful and hurtful stuff, then you're just as guilty if you're not sitting back here saying that he's wrong? Where is that line? I've said this example before, and I'm going to say this example again because this is an example that I just used. When you have someone who is, you have a person who is in a relationship, man and a woman, I guess, they're dating or they're married, and one of the partners is a criminal. Let's say they sell drugs in the community. They've done violent things in the community and because they're caught up in the drug game. People lose their lives because of their addiction to drugs. But for you and your family, you get the benefit, you reap the benefit, you reap the rewards, the financial rewards, the money that happens because the person is in the drug game, or so you get to have nice cars and nice clothes and nice cars or whatever. The negative parts of it, that people are being harmed and that their lives are going on. Can you sit back and just be like, that's not me, that's them? Does anybody look at you and they say, oh, well, I've heard that poor person, that they're sitting there tethered to this other, to their spouse who is making all this money and doing all these things, but they're just there because they have to be. They're not responsible for anything at all. Is that how people think that they're going to be looked at? Legally, what's the responsibility? Accessories. When they look at, are you an accessory to a crime? Are you an accomplice? Are you an enabler to the crime? That's how they look at it in when we look at it in the legal sense. So where is that responsibility, if you think of it like that? Or is it basically, look, just because we're together, just because we're dating, just because we're married, just because we're family, I don't have a responsibility to speak on behalf of the family, or I don't have a responsibility to speak back towards what the other person is doing. The question is, where's the line? The question is, what is the responsibility? And then the question for us is it fair? I'll tell you personally, what I think is, I do hold people responsible, especially when it's somebody that you choose. All right? We all know there's family that you choose and there's family that you don't choose. You don't choose your brothers and sisters. You don't choose your sons and daughters. You don't choose your mothers and fathers. You don't choose your aunts and uncles and your cousins. You don't choose them. They're born in, for the most part. Yeah, there's some exceptions, of course, but they're born in. Now, unless you are in a place where they have arranged marriage, you choose your partners. You choose your spouses. You choose the people that you date and that you want to be in that particular type of relationship with. So you have the ones that you don't choose and the ones that you choose. Now, for me, if you're sitting back here and there's people that you don't choose who are out here saying crazy things, that has very little to no reflection on you. You can speak against it, but nobody is sitting back here saying, well, you have to agree with them just because y'all are related. And I don't think that that's reasonable. But then when you go into the realm of choosing your spouse, your partner, whatever you want to call the person that you're with, That's different because you're not bound by blood. You chose that person. And so when they speak, you expect there's a reasonable amount of agreement that they're speaking with you. Because you wouldn't have chose them if y'all were just all the way opposed. You can't come together if you're just completely opposites, even though they say opposites attract. And so for me, I'm looking at it differently. So if you're sitting out here and your brother says something crazy, I'm like, ooh, your brother saying crazy stuff. That doesn't mean you think of it. But if then I'm sitting here and a spouse says something, and your spouse says some crazy stuff, and I'm looking at you and I'm saying, all right now, are you in the same boat? You know, and the only way I would assume that you were not is if you spoke out against it. And so as long as you don't speak out against it, I think that you are in the same boat. I do think that there's a level of responsibility. Unfortunately, I feel bad for Cheryl Hines in this situation if she does disagree with what her husband is saying and doing, and she has to defend herself against other people in her industry and her friends, and people are coming at her and saying, you know, you need to come out and speak against him and blah, 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 blah. Because at the end of the day, you don't know where somebody is going. You know where they were when you got together, but you don't know where they're going to go. And a lot of people have changed. They change over the years. Whether you change because you just got a little older and a little wiser, or you change because of medical conditions that, you know, made your thought processes go a little different. But I feel bad because some people change. But if it's your spouse, I do feel like you have a responsibility to let people know whether or not that represents you or not. Because the assumption is that it does. And you don't want people to think that you represent something that you don't. It's not a situation where I have to, oh no, I need to tell you that I disagree, because that's crazy. If y'all disagree as spouses and things like that, we don't need to know everything you disagree or agree on. But you should not be misrepresented. For example, if my spouse was out here and just saying all of this racist stuff that I disagree with, I don't want you to think that I agree with it. You know, you calling certain people names all the time, and you're saying that, and you're talking about them in a negative manner. Well, look, I don't do that. I don't agree with that. You know, I need to make that known. Comment: do we have a responsibility to call out wrong when we see wrong? I say yes. We have a responsibility to speak out against wrongdoing, particularly if someone I love is doing wrong. If I truly love them, I need to admonish them. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I think that's on it right there. I think, I'm going to bring it back up. I think that's on it right there. I think there is a responsibility, you know, and because many people say that's what love is. If you don't love somebody, you let them just do whatever. They can go out here and they can do all the little silly stuff that they want to do. They could walk into the middle of the street when there's cars coming. You don't know them. That's not your person. You don't love them. You're not running out there the same way you would if you love them. That's the thought process, not saying whether or not that's right or wrong. But when you have somebody that you love, you don't let them go into the wrong. You don't let them just say whatever, do whatever, and go out here. You want to help them so that they don't hurt themselves because you love them. That's why you do that. You speak to those who you love. And so I totally agree with that comment there. And so it makes you think about some of these people, you know, where the love goes either way. One, why would I pull you into a situation if I'm the one out here saying the crazy stuff? Why would I pull you into a situation where I know that doesn't represent you? And now I have other people coming at you like that. I pulled you into a situation that you didn't ask for. How much am I really thinking about you or caring about you? I may love you, but I'm not really, you know, thinking about what is best for you. And then on the reverse, you see somebody out here that doesn't need to be out here because you know that they're saying some things or they have some thoughts that they didn't really think through or they're not ready for the moment. How you gonna let them just go out there? You know, well, a lot of people say that RFK, you know, is not right. Like everything is not going on right. And as a spouse, sometimes you got to sit back and wonder, well, why did you let that person go out there? Did you do everything you could to stop them from going out there like that? But you know that they are not okay. But back to back more to what's at hand. I do think I significantly think we have that responsibility, and I agree with the comment here. It seems unfair when people are come at you for what your spouse did, or come at you for what your partner did, or come at you for what your family member did. But you have that responsibility. You represent all of them. We look at the church. At the end of the day, if we have somebody in our church going out here misrepresenting the faith, and they're making speeches, or they're going to talk to people, or they're doing whatever, they're misrepresenting the faith and misrepresenting the ministry, and then it is your responsibility, I feel, to say, well, that's not what we're about. What they're saying does not represent the faith, or what they're saying does not represent the ministry. Because if you don't, same way with the family, if you don't, then people will assume that they're speaking on behalf of the whole group. And I think that's significantly important. That's one of the things that we've talked about over and over again here, is how over the past few years, there have been a lot of people out here misrepresenting the Christian faith. They've been out here saying things that aren't true. They've been out here trying to just make up extra rules and responsibilities that is nowhere to be found biblically. And there was not some big agreement amongst leaders, amongst those who have been tasked, that this is what they should be doing. So there's people just making stuff up. And it is, I think, the responsibility of all of us who are in the family, who are in the Christian faith, to speak up and say, well, I don't think this is right. This does not represent what I believe. This does not represent what we're doing. You can do it however you want to do, and don't have to necessarily come against them. But I think that all of us have that responsibility to make sure that we say what represents us and what does not. Because if we don't, then people will think that it does. Right now, there are a lot of people who think that Cheryl Haynes is a Trump supporter. They think that she believes the negative things about immigrants, the way that Trump has said it, and the way some of the things that her husband has said. And so when you have those situations like that, you have to talk. You have to speak up, because people believe that what the greater movement is what Cheryl believes. And the only way they're going to think differently, and most people still won't think differently, is if she speaks up. And that's what happens with us here. When you have people out here representing the ministry, talking about, God blesses those who bless themselves, and, talking about all this prosperity, and God wants me to have a jet and all this other stuff. If you don't believe that, because I don't believe that, if I don't speak up and say, well, that doesn't really represent us, then people are going to assume that represents us. Comment. The thought is that Clarence Thomas must agree with his wife's views, particularly her view on January 6th. Silence can be viewed as agreement. Absolutely. 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 Silence is agreement. And that's a powerful one right there. Silence is agreement in a bunch of different ways. Silence is agreement. I can't remember who the guy was, but he was saying that no decision is a decision. So if you choose left, or you choose right, or you choose not to choose, you still chose. And that's what silence is. So if I choose to say, I don't agree with this, or I choose to say I do agree with it, those are decisions. But if you choose to say nothing and in silence, that's a decision as well, which is whether you agree or whether you don't agree, you're okay with it. Because if you're not okay with it, you'll speak against it. And as unfair as that may seem, that's the reality of the matter. Especially with Clarence. I mean, there was no question there. I'm pretty sure that Clarence Thomas not only agrees with what his wife did, he probably was helping her pick out her outfit for the day of going up to motivate people to go up there on January 6th. Like, he was ready. But that's neither here nor there. But I think I want to kind of hammer that home as our time starts slipping away. I think we have a responsibility. Let me switch that back. We do have a responsibility to make sure that whatever we're connected to, that we represent, that we make sure that people understand what we represent in the right way. We can't sit back and just be like, well, if I don't say anything, then they don't know where I'm at. No, then assumptions get made where you're at. And people don't need to assume where you're at when you can go ahead and say what it is. I mean, silence is golden. You can sit back and say nothing, and you speak less and you do more. I get it. But you can't have people misrepresent you. You can't have people thinking a certain way, because it doesn't, as much as you would say, well, it doesn't bother me. There's harm that can be done. As much as we want to sit back and the people out here are saying crazy things about the church, and we was like, well, that doesn't bother me. They doing that over there and whatever. You don't know how many people are listening to that and assuming that that's what it is. You don't know how many people are not coming by or coming by your church and your ministry or coming by you, or how many people are sitting back and turning their backs because they think that the words that are being said by others are true. It doesn't hurt you personally, but you don't know how many other people are hurt because of the words that are being said and how they're assuming that you're represented. And I think that's important. Churches and ministries cannot afford to have its members misrepresented. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if they do, because people make mistakes. People say some stuff. If you do say something crazy, if you do get out of line, if you do misinterpret something, or you do just have a moment, people should be able to say, no, that's not right. And as individuals, we're all going to be guilty of it from time to time. We don't know everything. If we say something that's out of line, we should be able to accept that. I've said stuff that's crazy, and people have been like, well, that's not in line with how you're supposed to be. And instead of just trying to defend what the craziness is, you sit back, you evaluate what's going on, or I've sat back and I've evaluated what's going on. I'm like, okay, this may be the way that I feel, but it's not in line with who I'm supposed to be. And so I need to be different, or I need to do different. Or maybe I don't need to talk about it. Maybe I need to sit back until I can get myself right. I don't agree. If I don't agree with what my ministry is doing, or I don't agree with what my church is doing, or I don't agree with what I just saw in the word, I don't need to go out here and start blabbing about how bad it is or how terrible it is. Maybe I need to sit back and think about my position. And eventually I'll either get on board and understand that maybe that was my flesh pulling me in the wrong direction, or maybe I won't get on board and I'll just be like, well, look, I don't agree with that. But I don't need to mess up the whole thing because of my misunderstanding. And so, yeah, I think I'm right on that. Churches and ministries, they definitely can't afford to have the members misrepresent. We definitely can't afford, especially in the position that we are right now. It is so many people who get out here and they start saying, well, I thought the church was doing this, or I thought the church was about that, and I thought the church was about this. Like, where did you get that from? This is not what the church is about. This is not what God is about. This is not what the people of God are about. So we're being misrepresented so much already. Individual ministries, we don't have the ability to get misrepresented even more. And so just like with our spouses or our family members, I think, and our churches, and the reason that all of this works together is because all of them are the same. They're the relationships. They're our family, whether it be your church family or your family by blood, or the family that you chose, spouse and partners. Whatever type of family it is, you have to make sure that y'all are on a similar page and that people understand when they're looking at you, what they're looking at, what they're communicating with, what they're getting in a relationship with. One of the things that we find in the Bible is that Paul never intentionally misrepresented God. He would always say, "This is me talking. This is what I think." Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and that I think that's where we can all take a lesson and a learn from Paul. Is, sometimes we talk and we need to make sure that people understand that this is not representative of the group. This is not representative of the faith. This is not representative of the family. This is not representative of anybody but me. This is my thought here, and this is the way I look at it. And so I think it's important. Again, you don't just represent yourself. You represent your family, you represent your church, you represent whatever organization you're a part of, you represent all that. And they represent you. And so the same way you want to be represented right, I think we need to make sure that we have other people represent us right. And so I think we make sure, whether if your family speaks up, you got to make sure, I don't agree with that, then you need to say it. You need to let it be known. Or what you're saying is off base, we need to say it and let it be known. All right. And look, I don't know how everybody else feel out there in the internet world, but I like that. I appreciate the comments, but I like that one. I think that one is important. I really do. I really do, because we all at some point in time, you're going to encounter that at some point in your life where somebody says something that doesn't represent you or you feel uncomfortable with, and you have that decision of whether or not you need to speak up. All right. As a reminder again to everyone, Thursday. All right. And Thursday, 7 o'clock, we have Thursday Thirst. Sundays at 10, we have worship. And on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock, we have prayer. And as always, at 8 on Tuesdays, we have Impact 2024, our continuing conversation, where you get to say what you want to say. I appreciate everybody joining us. Appreciate all the comments. And we will be here again next week. Have a good one.